I have the privilege today of speaking with an honest-to-goodness legend in the investing community, Mr. Jim Rogers. He co-founded the Quantum Fund. He's written multiple books. His latest is Street Smarts, Adventures on the Road and in the Markets. And, Jim, I don't think a single week goes by that I don't see you on television or read about an appearance you're making somewhere around the world. You are a gentleman in very high demand.
Well, I hope that weeks go by without you seeing me on TV. I got to stop that then.
Jim, we're coming off an historic 2 years' worth of gains for equities markets, largely driven by unconventional monetary policy. Once tapering commenced, I personally was expecting a much more dramatic correction for stocks, but other than a minor bump in the road, we really haven't seen that. Jim, did I get this wrong, or is there more pain yet to come?
Well, you're exactly right. Your insight is exactly right, because this is all been based on an artificial sea of liquidity, a huge ocean of liquidity that's artificial. When it ends, it's going to be very painful, because the longer it goes on, Brian, the more painful it's going to be in the end. You know, when you're sick or you have a problem, you should deal with the problem right away. And the idea that all we have to do is print money to make everything okay, that's insanity. It's never worked throughout history other than in the short term. It's never worked in the long term. It's never worked in the medium term. And we're all going to pay a very serious price.
Yeah, it's really frightening, because it seems as though there is a great false sense of security right now, and especially for folks that are near that retirement age, because they've really forced people to turn towards higher risk investments in order to get returns. It's really an insidious game that they're playing with us.
Well, you're right there. When you say people about to retire, the people who have retired, they're being destroyed. The people who for years or decades saved and invested their money or put aside money for their retirement are now being destroyed, because they're getting no interest. The people who went and borrowed huge amounts of money with no income and no down payment, they're getting bailed out at the expense of the people who did what most of us considered did the right thing.
Yes.
The ones who saved for the future and didn't get wildly overextended are being destroyed at the expense of those who did. And it's not just those who are about to retire, Brian. It's everybody who saved.
I'm curious, too, Jim. We've had a changing of the guard, so to speak, with the Federal Reserve. Are you surprised by the new Fed Chair, Janet Yellen's really seemingly kind of hawkish signals that she's been sending markets since taking over from Bernanke? And the reason I ask that is because here we have someone who, by nature, their political affiliation, you would expect them to be more dovish prior to taking over for Bernanke. She was 100% in favor, it seemed, of erring on the side of keeping stimulus measures in place perhaps longer than necessary. So with economic data so bizarrely mixed, the decision to slow down strikes me as somewhat puzzling, and I think to myself, well, is there something that they're not telling us?
Well, what they're not telling us is that Mrs. Yellen was part of the game in the beginning. She's been down there. She's known these people. She's as guilty as they are, in my view. And I mean, she doesn't know anything other than printing money. That's all she knows, and it's not the right thing to do. But don't think that she is any different from the rest of them. She's a money printer. She does. Look, all of these people, Brian, are academics and bureaucrats. They can't get real jobs, and so that's why they work for the government, and that's why they're sitting here taking what they think is the easy way, but it's not the easy way, because in the end, it's going to be a lot more painful for everybody. And not just in the U.S., it's going to be painful for people all over the world. Because, once America started doing it, then the rest of the world said, well, it must be right. If America's doing it, then everybody's printing a lot of money. Japan, Europe, England, all the major four central banks in the world now, and this is unprecedented in history, all are printing staggering amounts of money, and you and I and everybody listening to this is going to suffer.
When the first round of quantitative easing was announced, Jim, there was strong disagreement over whether QE technically could be considered printing money as we think of it in the traditional sense. There was also fear that the Fed was leading us into a future that was going to be marked by severe inflationary pressures. Now, obviously, food and energy costs have certainly gone up, but inflation, as the Fed calculates it, has been relatively tame. So proponents of QE have said, aha, see, Bernanke knew exactly what he was doing. He prevented another Great Depression. I think the Fed's balance sheet now stands at over $4 trillion today. why haven't we seen our day of reckoning quite yet? Because it has to be coming just right around the corner.
Oh, it will definitely come. There's no question about that. There is inflation now. The government lies about it, but in most countries of the world, people acknowledge that there's inflation. I mean, if you look at Norway or India or China or Taiwan, Australia, most countries acknowledge that there is inflation. America lies about it for many reasons. And if you shop, Brian, you know that there's inflation.
Yes.
Whether it's education or insurance, healthcare. Oh my gosh, healthcare is a nightmare. We all know that there's inflation, and it's going to get worse. Do not think it's not going to get worse. You should be prepared, and you should be worried.
Well, absolutely. But if it takes off to rates like what we saw in the early 80s, Jim, how does the Fed possibly counter that? Certainly not by a severe hike in interest rates. The cost to service our debt would collapse the economy in no time. And yet they're so arrogantly adamant, it seems like. I don't even think they have a plan because they seem to believe as though it's an unlikely scenario that would even occur.
Well, I think you've heard me say we're all going to suffer bad. That's one of the reasons we're going to suffer badly. Interest rates are not going to stay at zero forever. Somewhere along the line, either the central banks are going to come to their senses, which is unlikely, or the market is just going to say, we're not going to take this garbage anymore. Interest rates will go back to normal levels. And at that point, it's not just the U.S., Japan, England, many countries in Europe, they're all going to have to pay the price because debts keep going higher and higher and higher. No country in the world has lower debts now than they did a couple of years ago. Debts are going up everywhere. And as you point out, when interest rates go back to what is historically normal, a lot of people are going to suffer very badly.
I read recently that the debt to GDP ratio is currently 73%, and with the CBO projecting 100% of GDP within 25 years, best case scenario. Jim, every time the government issues new figures, I scratch my head a little bit because it's always best case scenario. But, historically, we know we're just about due for another recession. They seem to happen about, every 6 years or so. And once that happens, we can pretty much throw those figures out the window, can't we?
Oh, there's no question about that. We have had economic slowdowns every 4 to 6 years since the beginning of the Republic. So I guarantee you what's coming again, despite what the politicians and the bureaucrats tell you, we're definitely going to have more. And when they come, we're going to suffer because they've already built up staggering amounts of debt. Can we quadruple our debt again? I don't think so. Perhaps we can, but it's going to take a lot of money printing for that to happen, and that would probably lead to even more currency turmoil around the world. And by the way, you say that the debt to GDP is 73%. You're using government numbers. If you use, real numbers, the debt is even higher than that.
Let me ask you specifically about the dollar, Jim. Our currency certainly is really the determining factor, I think, in how our fate in the U.S. plays out. Putin made some empty threats this week about dumping the dollar, but China is actively lobbying the IMF to move towards a system of special drawing rights. Some analysts have speculated that China is buying all that gold for the purpose of backing their own currency. Others say no, they're hedging against potential losses if the U.S. inflates the dollar. Do you have a sense for what the global monetary system will eventually transition into in terms of a reserve currency, Jim?
Oh, Brian, if I knew that, I'd be rich. I'd get rich, that's for sure. No, at the moment, I happen to own U.S. dollars, not because I have any confidence. It's a terribly flawed currency, but as we have more problems in the world, many people will flee to the dollar because they think it's a safe haven. It's not a safe haven, but since they don't know what else to do, people will flee to the dollar. I hope that I'm smart enough that if that happens, and if it happens that way, if I'm smart enough to then sell my dollars and put my money somewhere else, which leads to the answer to your question. Where will it be? I don't know. It could be the renminbi. At that point, the renminbi is becoming more and more convertible, as you know, more and more freely tradable. But it might be something else. I don't know. It could be rice, for all I know. By then, food prices, food shortages will be bigger and bigger and bigger. I have no idea where I'll put my money at that stage, or what will compete with and or replace the dollar. But something will, because this is a America's the largest debtor nation in the history of the world.
Jim, before I let you go, I'd love to get your thoughts on the gold market. The metal has posted solid gains since the beginning of the year. Not enough where I've quite broken even yet because I bought at $1,700. But, the metal has shown strong support this year, first at $1,200, then at $1,300. I know you've been pretty adamant that every investor should own at least some gold and some silver. It seems like the QE premium has long been removed. Are prices at a level now where, especially for first-time buyers, it makes sense to accumulate, or does it make sense to wait this out a while?
Well, if people don't own any gold, they should certainly buy some gold because you've got to have it as an insurance policy, if nothing else. Most people have health insurance or car insurance or life insurance or whatever kind of fire insurance, and they hope they never use it. They hope they don't need it. So you should consider gold that way too. You should have some as insurance, if nothing else. Now, I happen to own gold because I think I'm going to make money. But even if I don't, I have it as an insurance policy. Yes, everybody should own some, and you pick the price, but don't wait too long if you don't own any gold. I'm not buying gold at the moment, Brian, because I suspect there's going to be another chance to buy gold down the road. If and when gold goes down some more, I hope I'm smart enough to buy more. And it may not go. I mean, if America goes to war, it's going to go straight through the roof.